Well, I'm going to give you a little bit more of an introduction of myself, and I'm going to be up here for about 20 minutes. I have to watch the time because then I'm going to hand it over to Kimberly. So, like she said, my name is Veronique Golloher, and for those of you who never seen me before, I've actually been here in this church for 15 years this summer. So I have moved around a few campuses. My husband and I helped start the Central Campus in its beginning, and then we planted the Midtown Campus that is now closed. That's part of my story tonight. So it's kind of funny to be back up here and talk about a subject that I never thought I would bring, talking about business, and anyways, I'll come back to that. Okay. My goal tonight is not just obviously to talk about my journey in leading my own business, but it's to maybe help you to shift your perspective on your calling in serving God, because that's my story. My perspective has really shifted over the last 4 years on what it means to shine for God, what it means to rise up, what it means to serve God. Even the whole idea of ministry has changed so much. Sometimes I think back of 4 years ago, and it's hard to believe it's the same person. So, just to give you a little bit overview of who I am, because that's going to help you understand my journey. I went to school for social work, and when I moved here to Toronto, I didn't end up working in social work. I was district manager for a coffee shop from Montreal. No, has nothing to do with my training whatsoever. And then I worked for the church and in a creative department before I worked as a pastor. I've been all over. And then in 2013, I was standing at the back of our church, and I had finally come to terms with the fact that I was not just a pastor's wife, that God was also calling me, and I also had something to offer. And I had dealt through a lot of inner healing issues. And then I looked at the people in front of me. I was at the back, so I guess I was seeing their back. We were all worshiping. And I felt this overwhelming love, really cool feeling. Wow, God, I really love these people. I felt like, I'm at home. I'm aligned with your calling. And then God said, you've done well, but you're done here. And I was like, what? That is not what I expected. And I kind of put that word on the shelf, as we say sometimes with prophetic words or something we hear. It just didn't line up with any of the circumstances. But a few months later, when a prophetic word came from one of our leaders that our church was meant to close, and it was not a bad thing, it was a good thing, that God was going to launch us all into different things, I remembered that moment. And I was like, oh, this is happening. So that started a very, very hard journey of my life. And it was not easy. There's even some days where I doubted God's existence. It was just, when you feel so confused, your circumstances don't look anything like what you thought God had said and what you envisioned your life to be, and it just all of a sudden everything is just a mess and you can't make sense out of it all. Well, that's where I was. And came this business opportunity, and I fought it for about 6 months because it didn't line up. It didn't line up with who I thought I was. It didn't line up with what I thought my skills were. So remember my training, but even before that, I was the child in front of the TV that would bawl at, World Vision videos. I always wanted to serve with, no, I didn't really care about money. I thought actually that people that went into that was not serving God. That was, working for themselves. And obviously I've done a 180 on that one. But I answered an altar call for being a missionary before I even answered an altar call for getting saved. Like, that was just, that was me. So for me, when God started bringing up the idea of starting this business, I was like, I am not called to business. I'm not called to this. This does not line up with anything I've ever heard about what my life was going to be or ever, thought. So obviously I ended up saying yes to God. And God, every time I said, but I don't have the skills. I don't have what it takes. I don't think I can do this. Or, this is, I just really want to serve you, God. I don't want to go that route. Am I not good enough for ministry? Oh. So God would just say, trust me, just trust me. Does God ever say that to you when you ask for explanations? Just trust me? Anybody? Okay, it's not just me. Oh man, I wanted to understand why. Why was I to go down that path? To me, it was just the mundane stuff. I just wanted to serve God in full-time ministry because that's where the most spiritual people go, right? No. So business had never been on my radar. And so I thought, because I have to kind of find an explanation for all of this, I thought, well, maybe God just wants to fix our finances because it was a mess. And then he'll send me back into the more important stuff. Little did I know, God is very, very strategic. And his ways are so much higher than our ways. His thoughts are so much higher than our thoughts, as it says in Isaiah 55. So in the last 4 years since I started my business, my mindset has really changed on a lot of things. So the first one I wanted to share with you guys is, and obviously this doesn't just apply to you starting a business. It applies to anything that you might step into, that you might think of stepping into, that you might be fighting God about, that is the unknown, that is uncomfortable, that doesn't look like what you thought your life would look like. God is so, so strategic, and there's no mistake in what he does. And it's oftentimes we think of a certain area. So like in my case, I thought, well, maybe he wants to fix my finances. There was so much more than that. There's like no waste in God's economy. So the second one is that if we want to be God's hands and feet in this world, we have to be willing to let God lead us into these uncomfortable places. And for me, it was uncomfortable to shine. And when you're in business by yourself, you're the only one there. It's, there's no one to hide behind. There is no husband to send to the new people because you're too afraid to start conversations. That was me. I had so many what we call ungodly beliefs in the church, and in business we call it limiting beliefs. I had all of them, and for me it was super uncomfortable to think of letting who I was shine. I didn't think I was enough. It's crazy that through these years of ministry, I hadn't dealt with these things. I had hidden behind, the title that was given to me, and I was just kind of serving God, but not really believing that I had something to offer, that I was enough. And guys, I didn't even believe that God wanted to bless me. Like, I had so many limiting beliefs. But to come back to my point is, if we want to be God's hands and feet, we have to be willing to shine, right? And to be the influence and to step into leadership. And not just in the church. Outside of the church as well, there's so many places where we could step in, we could step up and really influence for good and be an instrument of change. There's a quote by, now I can't remember her name, Williamson is her last name. In the middle of her quote, she says, "Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened or godly about shrinking so that people won't feel insecure around you." And that's marked so much of my journey, is that your playing small does not serve the world. Is there anybody in this room here that feels like playing small? You know, when you feel like, oh, no, I'm not that great, I'm not that important, I don't have, you play it small, you talk yourself down, you're kind of, it's false humility, right? It does not serve the world. It's really letting God shine through us that does serve the world, that can make a difference. The other thing that I've learned is that our gifts are not only for the church. So my spiritual gifts that God was using when I was a pastor were not just to be used in the church. I now have 17,000 people in my team, in my business, and hello, opportunities to minister, right? Pastoring, speaking life over people, my mentoring of my leaders oftentimes ends up being an inner healing session where we deal with limiting beliefs and just helping each one of them to become who they're really meant to be and walk in their fullness. The influence that I was longing to have, the positive impact, God was like, I have something in store for you. But it did not look like I thought it would look. And that's really what I want you to take home, is it didn't look like I thought. So don't dismiss any opportunities that don't look like what you think it should look. Just really try to be in tune with what God is saying and trust Him into the unknown. So the last thing is that I am not in business because I wasn't good enough for ministry, which was a lie that I believed. He placed me here for such a time as this, to shine with all the good stuff that He's put in me, to be a godly influence in the world that so needs it. And He's placed me on the hill to shine, right? Like it says in Matthew that we're a light put on the hill, and we were not going to cover that light, we're going to shine. And I want you to think, what is your hill? Might not be business. It can be anything, really. What is the hill that God wants to put you on to shine and to be a godly influence in our world? There's a lot of spots for grabs, and who's going to take it, right? So Kimberly, it's your turn.
Such an honor to be here, especially with my most favorite business partner. Now, I have to say that about all my business partners. They're all my most favorite, just like we're all most favorite children of God, right? So if you could just bring up the PowerPoint presentation, that'd be awesome. I'm really excited to be able to share with you some of the things that are on my heart today. This is a really bad picture. I don't know, something got lost in the translation between my computer and their computer, but I thought it was quite funny because my son does all of my marketing for me, and he prepared this for social media, and it was this beautiful picture of me and Veronique, and that we're speaking at Catch the Fire Radiant Women. I think I made that name up. What's the actual name again? Passionate Women. So tonight we're going to be passionate and radiant women. How about that? That's pretty amazing. So I'm really thrilled to be able to share with you a little bit more kind of how my journey kind of interacts with Veronique's. And my story is very much the same as hers. I don't know how this thing works. I think you have to turn it on first. That always makes it a little bit more productive. Let me try this. Click. Ah, it works. This is awesome. It's a good day. So this is how I'm supposed to look. I am absolutely convinced that when we get to heaven, we will all look photoshopped. And so I really think that just like when I go to the hairdresser, I remind my hair what color it's supposed to be. This picture reminds me of what I'm supposed to look like. So that's me. As you heard, I'm a Canadian founder and presidential diamond leader with doTERRA. Now, if you're not in doTERRA world, what you need to know is that all that means is that I get the seats at the very front. That's the most important part of that. I'm telling you, were any of you at the recent conference, Light the Fire Again conference? People were getting here at 6 a.m. just to sit on a cushion chair, so you didn't have to sit way at the back. Do you know, I felt like walking in and say, hey, I'm a presidential diamond leader. It wasn't working. I didn't get the front seats. But with doTERRA, I do. But my background actually has nothing to do with healthcare, even though doTERRA is an essential oil company. My background is actually a CPA. So that's quite a switch. And the switch was highlighted to me just the other day when I was at an event for the School of Accounting and Finance of University of Waterloo. I know it sounds really boring, it kind of was, but it was at a really nice restaurant and they had good food. But when I walked in, what amazed me is how much my world has changed. I walk into a room and it was entirely black. There was lots of light, but everybody was wearing black, even the women. And I'm there, you can put that slide up, I'm there in that dress, and I stood out like a sore thumb, and my fingernails are painted 2 different colors. Like, that's weird even for me. I don't even know how I let that happen. So I'm walking into a very, very different world from being a CPA to being what I am now. And like Veronique, my journey has been quite an unexpected one, let's just say that. So let me tell you that tonight is going to be all about perspective. If you're here tonight, know you're here for a reason, and I believe the same as Maruna said, that there is something that God is going to do in you today with regard to perspective. Now, who knows what this is about? Laurel people, put your hand up. Who are the Yannies? So for those of you who don't know what this is probably closest to World War IV that we're going to get. So what happened is that there was this small 2-second clip going around on the internet, and some people think that it says Yanni or something like it. If you're my husband, it says Yali or something. And some people think it says Laurel. Now, I heard the clip over and over and over again. I can't get beyond the Laurel. Like, I'm sorry, that's all it says to me is Laurel. Anybody else who's my Laurel people? But other people are convinced it says Yanni. And so apparently the difference is in what frequency that you pick up on. So when they eliminate the lower frequency, I actually can hear the Yanni. And when you eliminate the higher frequency, well then, even my husband and my son heard Laurel. And it really is about what are you tuning into? Are you tuning into the high frequency or the low frequency? Now, I don't like this particular example to be pushed too far, because in this example, that means I'm tuning into the low frequency, which, you know, in my world is kind of a bad thing. You're supposed to be tuning into the high frequency. But let's just assume, for the sake of my illustration, that I was tuning into the right frequency because I like to be right. And let's just assume that I was going to be able to explain to everybody around me what my perspective was. Well, that would be awesome. But it's not so awesome when you're in a situation and you're tuning into the wrong frequency and you're actually perceiving your situation with the wrong pair of glasses or the wrong ears. And like Veronique said, in her journey, that's how she felt. And my journey has been pretty much the same. So I started off kind of feeling like, as a Christian, I came from a completely non-Christian home. So when I became a Christian, I really wanted to be a good one, right? I wanted to check all the boxes on. I always got A's in school. I scored in the top of all of my exams. I wanted to be a good Christian. So I wanted to do everything right. And that means that I had to be really spiritual, and I had to be really involved in ministry. And so we went through all of the paths. We tried, we wanted to be cell group leaders. And so I think we were pretty great cell group leaders, actually. But the reality is that that wasn't enough. We felt like we were called to something more. I think the biggest story that this reminds me of is the story that I was supposed to read and I forgot, which is from the book of Genesis, and it's the story of Joseph, right? Remember Joseph? He really believed that he had something pretty awesome inside of him. He really believed it, and he told his brothers, and they didn't like it. And he even told his parents, actually, I think I'm going to be over you. And his parents were like, his dad was like, I don't think so. That doesn't sound like that's very godly to me. But he knew that something was awesome inside of him. And yet his circumstances, from being sold into slavery, and then as a slave, going into jail, and then after that, having the experience of almost getting a light that potentially he can get out of jail, only to have the cupbearer forget about him, and now he's still stuck in jail. And it wasn't until Pharaoh had the dream, the cupbearer remembered Joseph, that Joseph actually had his opportunity to rise. Now, through all of that, I'm sure that he had times where he was thinking, what was I thinking when I thought that I was going to be something? What was I thinking? What was I thinking when I thought that I could be in ministry? What was I thinking when I thought that I was going to be a leader? What was I thinking? But Joseph must have believed at some level that the things that he really believed were really true, because he kept above his circumstances. He didn't lower himself down. He didn't become a criminal just because he was in jail. He rose above, and he got the attention of the people who were in the positions where he needed to get their attention. And so as a result of that, Joseph rose finally to the place where he needed to be, the place where he was destined to be. But all along that journey, I'm sure that there was times when he was confused. And likewise, my husband and I were confused. We went through cell group leadership. We felt like we should have a marriage ministry. My husband ran a men's ministry for a long period of time. We even went to the point of getting a website so that we could do marriage ministry. And we paid somebody to help us develop this website, but it never seemed to go anywhere. I felt like every time I was trying to access the places in ministry where I felt I needed to be, it seemed like there was like a no entry sign. It's like, what gives? Did I get something wrong? Is there something wrong with me? Why don't you want me, God? And I think it's with that attitude that I felt a little shelved. Can you relate? For, I think it was 15 months, my husband and I moved out of the city, so we could no longer do our cell group because we lived like a bajillion miles away. And I felt like I was in no man's land. Like literally, I enjoyed some beautiful scenery. I enjoyed my time with my family, but I felt totally shelved. Maybe there really wasn't anything so great about me after all. And so that's a really hard pill to swallow. And it's really hard to come out from under that. But that's the place that I was in when the doTERRA business opportunity came to me. And I'm going to tell you, I did not run into it. In fact, when I first became a customer with doTERRA, I was actually already the customer of another essential oil company. And I didn't really want to have another membership with another essential oil company. And so I told the person who enrolled me, don't put me on a mailing list, and I know that there's a business opportunity associated with this. Don't talk to me about the business. I'm not interested. We all have to eat humble pie, right? But that's how I felt. That's how I started. And then I started kind of loving the oils, and I started thinking, why not? So my first approach to the business was kind of more like this. Oh, well, I have nothing else to do. God doesn't want me in ministry, might as well start a business. What I'm good at. Oh, well, not much of a tale. And that's kind of the attitude I had. And it took me a long time to kind of grow out of that. And, we always talk about a why in my business. You need to have a why to be successful. Well, at the beginning, my why was kind of like Vera. I was like, I just kind of want to pay the bills. Like my husband wasn't working. I wasn't working. I didn't really want to go back to work. I wanted to stay home with my awesome little Jonathan. So my why was really, I just want to make some money. I had no idea how much money I could make, but I wanted to make some money. And then I kind of wanted to succeed too, because I kind of wanted to prove that I was good at something again. You ever feel like that? You just want to, like Monopoly. I'll just win at Monopoly. I just need to feel good about something, And that's how I felt. But thankfully, I started doing pretty well in my business. I hit diamond. This is supposed to come out one at a time. It's not nearly as epic as I made it. But diamond, blue diamond, presidential diamond, and I started doing really well. And I was really, really grateful. I started seeing some of the aspects of which ministry was suddenly appearing. Restoring the foundations I had been trained in, I was using it with my team members to help them to overcome their issues, and they were getting freedom. One person gave her life to Christ in the middle of a Restoring the Foundations ministry session for her business. I started introducing people to sozo. Now, I don't do sozo, but I referred people to get sozo healing, which is another healing modality. I did a Rise Up, which was we've done it several times. It's a business training that we do within my business. Well, the end of those business trainings, you've been part of them. They felt more like an encounter weekend than it felt like a business training weekend. People were getting set free. At the last one where Caroline was involved, my daughter, my 21-year-old daughter, stayed up all night long, literally did not sleep a minute of the night because she was writing out prophetic words for every single person at that business training. She stayed up all night doing that, and when they read it, they were weeping because God had something to say to them. And of course, we've also had the opportunity to do marriage ministry right within my team. In fact, one of the dear ladies on our team who we've done ministry with her and her husband, every single time we have a business meeting and we talk about the business, she says, "This changed my life." And she talks about how Steve and I invested in her marriage and saved her marriage. Isn't God sneaky? Oh, whoa, not sure what happened there. Let's go back. We're going to go back. We're going to keep going back. We're going to go back again. Back. Someone help me over there. I'm on not this one, but a couple more down the line. I don't know, but anybody else start breaking into a southern accent anytime they want to put a little sass on? So this is what started happening. I had a global impact. Right now, my business is in 32 countries, 23, I don't know, a lot of countries, 28 countries, I think. I have friends that I would never have been connected to before. Friends from every kind of background you can imagine, every religion, every kind of, way of thinking. These are my friends. These are my team members. Looks a little bit like the Great Commission to me. Looks a little bit like the harvest field. And yet this is my business. 24,000 people connected to me through my business, and that's just connected to me directly. That's not the impact I have as a Canadian founder, as a presidential diamond leader within doTERRA. This is the place where God was sending us. But it doesn't come without a little bit of trouble, and that's the troubled waters. So some of the things that I had to face in growing the business, the same things that Veronique had to face, are some of the things that are supposed to come up one by one but are not going to because it's a little funky. All right, we're going to go back there again. Can someone back there just help a little? The one after that. Yeah, so these are some of the things we had to face. So kind of hidden behind there is ask the universe for anything that you want. That becomes part of our business training. I always wanted to ask them, how do you know the universe really likes you? I know that my Father loves me, but how do you know the universe even likes you? Visualization for manifestation, the law of attraction, that started becoming a huge part of the teachings that we were getting. Manifest anything. There's this whole, emphasis on New Age and understanding your chakras, and how much of that is actually godly and how much of that is not godly, and is any of it good? Maybe I can read books like Think and Grow Rich, or the other one, the Big Great Leap or something. What's that leap one called? It's behind there. Anyway, there's these business books that all have some truth to them, but it's almost like eating a green potato. Has anybody ever eaten a green potato? Oh, I'm telling you, you get those green potatoes, you cut them up. Like they're not supposed to be green, just it's not a good thing if your potatoes are green. But if you don't notice, you cut them up, you put the spices on them, you cook them, and you eat them, and you're like, oh, this is so good. And then afterwards, it's like bitter. And that's what it's like when you read some of this material. It's like, wow, it sounds so true and so real until you get to the end, and it's like, ugh, where'd that come from? Remember some of the books we had to read? Bitter. And maybe I just need to awaken my inner goddess. I remember being part of a business training, and I had to come up with my goddess name. So I'm like, goddess name. All right, Deborah. Yes. And I came up with the name Deborah. So these are some of the things that we had to face. I'm kind of afraid to make this next slide come up, so if someone back there could just put the next one up, that'd be awesome. These are some of the other things we had to face. Now behind this is the whole MLM issue. Anybody have an MLM issue? Multi-level marketing? If you do, come and talk to me. We'll talk, okay? I'm a CPA, okay? We don't get involved in pyramid schemes. So is this a pyramid scheme? What is this? I had to deal with that. I had to deal with money. I was getting money and lots of it. What do I do with money? Should I have money? Should I not have money? Maybe I should be giving it away. Maybe it's ungodly. I spend money on things now I used to judge people for. Eek. Hard, huh? Then you realize all of your stuff comes up. Influence. You suddenly get a lot of influence. What do you do with it? Do you want it? Do you not want it? Power. The church had no answers for me when I was growing through this. The Bible did, but the church didn't. And I felt myself alone and afraid. I felt myself just wanting to hide. Do you know how frightening it is to know that you're going to have a massive influence on the people around you? And the people that are on my front line are pastors, missionaries, people who love the Lord, and I feel the weight of that on my shoulders thinking, God, am I leading them astray? It was terrifying. Then, of course, I get the messages sent to me, oh, did you know the owners of doTERRA aren't Christian? As if we're only supposed to work for Christian companies. Like, isn't light supposed to be in the darkness? And essential oils, maybe they're from the occult. I think God made them, but maybe they are from the occult. So all of these become questions that we get confronted with. Next slide. And then there was the uncharted waters, and we can just throw the next slide up after that. Being on social media. Do you know, as a good Christian woman, you're supposed to be modest. You're supposed to not, make much of yourself, and yet my face is all over social media. I have my son getting my daughter to follow me around with a camera, taking pictures of me everywhere so he can throw them up on social media. My son's my marketing manager. And I'm like in the hot tub, and suddenly, next day I see my picture on social media, and I'm in the hot tub, and it's like, where did that even come from? I used to laugh at my son telling him that I only found out what I had for breakfast when I read my social media posts. It's like, oh, that's what I had for breakfast. He would make stuff up sometimes. It's like, oh, goodness. But what prepares you for this? What part of church teaching prepares you for being splashed across the internet and being vulnerable and open? Nothing. Next one, please. And I realized that I wasn't just doing this for myself. I was forging a path. I was forging a path for Veronique, for Daphne, for Yari and Tanya, for the many, many other leaders that are on my team. But it goes beyond that. And I heard Patricia King speak at Women on the Front Lines conference last October, I guess it was. And what she said was that she saw this vision of women being on the front line, but some of the positions were vacant. And I felt like just throwing my hands up saying, I know, because I'm there. I'm on the front line in business, and the positions are vacant. They're being taken over by women who are very powerful, but who do not know the Lord. They're being taken over by women who have no problem rising up and being seen, but what they're showing the world has nothing of Christ. And I realized that not only do I have to rise up to that position so that Christ can be made known on that mountain, but I need to turn around and say to you, come, we got to go there. If they can call out to the universe and manifest things, can I not call on the Father, the creator of all things, and see that what I decree with my mouth will be established? Shouldn't we be able to one-up them when we have the God of all creation, who is our Father? Why are we playing small? Why are we being afraid? We can't be afraid. The kingdom suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. I've had to learn to be forceful. I've had to learn to be bold. And I'll tell you, the church, and as a historical church, is uncomfortable with very bold women. But the world needs very bold women. The world needs very bold women who are not bold for their own sake, but who are bold for the sake of the gospel. Next slide, please. So that's a really crappy picture, but it's a ministry that I've just launched. It's on Facebook. It's called Make Your Mark. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it on YouTube, and soon to be found on Instagram. And it is for everybody. It is not for doTERRA people. It is for them, but it's not only for them. It is not just for people who are in direct sales. It is for any woman who wants to grow, and actually for men as well. I've got several men that are following me or being part of this group, because there's nothing female about building a business. There's different things potentially. But Make Your Mark is meant to be my way of helping others to navigate the waters. Because as I was going through that, I learned a few things. And if I can help somebody else, and if I can coach somebody else, and if I can let people know that it's okay to rise, and that Scripture and Jesus and your Father are right behind you, then I want to do that. Next slide, please. So we started talking about perspective. And now I want to ask you, how do you feel? What's your perspective? I'm going to share a very personal story, because this can make or break what you do with your life, is how you look at things. I have 4 amazing children, and my eldest is a boy. My little guy is 7. My eldest is 26. And he started, questioning Christianity, and he went down a path for a long period of time where he was, very anti-God. He just was opposed to anything God, and it broke our hearts, and it broke our relationship for a while. Not Steve and I, but our relationship with him. And then he started pursuing, alternate spirituality. He started getting involved in more what we would call New Age stuff, although he wouldn't call it that. And I kept saying, God, why? Steve and I had gone through so much trouble in our marriage, and all I could think about was it's because I messed up. This wouldn't be happening if I hadn't messed up. And I kept beating myself up and beating myself up. And I would repent, and I would break things off, and I would do whatever I could, and I still didn't see a shift happening in him. And then God gave me a different perspective because of one person's words. As I was sharing with this person, and I really wish I remembered who this person was because I want to thank them. But as I was sharing with this person, my struggle with my son and my desire to see him come back to a relationship with Christ, he's named Christ Bearer, Christopher. As I shared with this person, what they said to me is, wow, it's beautiful that the Lord entrusted you with him. And all of a sudden I thought, what? The Lord entrusted me with him? Well, yeah, because the Lord knows that you can handle it. The Lord knows you're going to steward this well. And in that moment, everything shifted. I started realizing that Christopher was exactly where Christopher needed to be, and that Christopher was a gift. Do you know how many people in the New Age community I deal with on an ongoing basis? And do you know how much Christopher helps me understand what they think and how they think? Do you know that he helps me to form bridges so that it's not us and them, but it's us? I'm so grateful for that shift in perspective. And I know that there's a lot of you who have been going through things and you've been wondering, why? I don't get it. Why am I where I am when I feel like I should be over there? And I want you to know it's okay to feel that way. But it's not okay to stay there. You need to get the higher vibration perspective. And we're going to do some ministry tonight, Vero and I, on that. But before I close, I'm going to show you a video. And this is something I prepared for a training at a business summit that I'm doing in a couple of weeks from now. And I feel like I want to share it with you because I feel like it's going to call to some of your hearts about maybe where God is going to lead you. So when you have a moment, if you could just bring that up. If you could just bring up the last slide, that'd be awesome. So I want to invite you on your own journey. Maybe that journey is business. Maybe that journey is something very different than business, but I want to invite you. This is my contact information for Make Your Mark. I actually had postcards that were supposed to be handed out to you today, but the printers decided to not print them. But that's okay, we roll. But take down the information, and if you want to join me and Make Your Mark, please do. But more than anything, join with your Father, seeing things from His perspective and understanding that it ain't over yet. It's just beginning. So Veronique, I'd love to invite you back up here. And I want to specifically focus on, Veronique may have other people that she wants to invite up, but I want to specifically focus on two groups of people today. So in the first group of people, I want to just speak an impartation over you if you feel called to business. If you feel like this is the area, this is the mountain that you're meant to take, I want to invite you to come onto this side, and Veronique and I are going to pray over you. And we're going to impart to you whatever it is that we have to give. So feel free to come now if you'd like for business on this side, male or female, anybody. And over here, I'm going to ask ministry team to come as well. But over here, I just want to invite you, if you are needing a shift in perspective, if you are needing a shift into understanding the circumstances that you're in. Runa started talking about perspective. She didn't even know that we're going to talk about that, but I feel like there's something more to press into, a shift in perspective. You need to see things from a different perspective. You need to understand. So come on over here, and ministry team, I'm going to invite you to come and pray for them. And maybe we can just put some music on, but Veronique, do you have anything else that you want to pray? Okay, so we're just going to put some music on and go into a time of ministry, and then Veronique and I will be here after if you want to chat.